her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina Speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to the
Good evening,
show.
Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, what do you know? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and near and far to all of you, to our Sabrina Speaks family. I am Sabrina, and welcome, one and all, to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. Welcome. I see you all coming in. It's good to be back here with you as we wind down Tuesday. Don't know where you've been on the island today, but beautiful day. I was expecting it to be just a little bit warmer, but I'm really not complaining. Please don't misunderstand that. No, that does not actually represent exactly this top that I'm wearing. I just had a moment today. But yeah, it has been a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that all of you who are just about bolting out of work or going on or getting up to go on to your next shift, that you're giving thanks, definitely. But it's good to be back here with you for another informative, engaging, thought-provoking as well discussion this evening that you're all so welcome to be a part of at all times. But just for you guys who may have missed the flyer, what we're talking about, because I see that question popping up. What are you talking about? Tonight we're talking about something that I gotta be honest with you, many people whisper about, but a few, to be honest, dare to confront it publicly. Until today, I have a feeling that you guys are going to come out. And what I'm talking about is slum landlords right here in the Cayman Islands. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, in one of the wealthiest countries in the region, people are living in unsafe, overcrowded, even if it's by design, and disregarding conditions while paying rent that would make your jaw drop, literally. And I would know because I've been on the ground for a while. And here's the twist. Really, Cayman actually has a law designed to protect tenants. Yes, not only tenants, but there's a piece of legislation. And this piece of legislation as well was passed back in 2009, and it outlines the standards of one's surrounding, fair eviction rules, deposit protections, and even tenancy commissioner, a new position. Now, sounds great, right? Yeah, except for one thing, the law in itself was never enacted. It exists, but it doesn't exist. It's really a ghost law. So what really governs rentals today? That's the question, right? All common law principles, 19th century legislation, and pretty much whatever your landlord decides to put in your lease. Now, if you think you even get a lease, that's even if you get one, right? Because some people don't have it. No oversight, no enforcement, really, no minimum standards. And in a housing crisis, that vacuum in itself really, ladies and gentlemen, becomes a playground for exploitation. Bearing in mind, you seeing where the numbers for DAF has gone up, and a lot of that includes rental from some of these very same locations. So tonight we're going to be talking about what that means for real people. And my aim is hopefully that we'll go into talking about the power imbalance as well. And we're going to also talk about the consequences of really inaction from our powers that be. And if time permits, maybe we can even talk about what accountability looks like. Well, before we get into that, the content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and our participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. And our number is 345-936-8255 is a number to call to be a part of this discussion this evening. And also you can weigh in on whatever social media platform you're streaming us live from. We are coming to you live from the beautiful Cayman Islands every Monday to Friday from 5 p.m. local time until 7. Yes. And before you know how we do it, oops, did I save that image? No, I did not. Yes, I did. No, I did not. Before we get into it, I see you all. Good to see you piling in. Tell your friends this is going to be interesting. But I want to encourage you all to actually join in and weigh in on this conversation, because it's one thing of me bringing to you a law that never became enacted. It'll be interesting to see why this inaction or failing to enact could have possibly held more people accountable. And at the end of the day, yeah, what does it say about us as a jurisdiction? But let's take a look at what's happening in our skies first, and as it pertains to our weather. The synopsis calls for, as we continue to see, moderate to fresh winds across the Cayman area as a ridge of high pressure builds over the Northwest Caribbean. Because of that ridge, rough seas are still affecting our northern and eastern coast, and a small craft advisory remains in effect. Satellite imagery this afternoon shows scattered but generally fair cloud cover across the Northwest Caribbean. The forecast for tonight calls for partly cloudy skies with a few cloudy spells later on and about a 20% chance of showers. Now, temperatures will dip into the low to mid 70s, and winds will be east to northeast 10 to 15 knots with higher gusts at times. Seas will stay rough with wave heights between 5 to 7 feet, and a small craft advisory remains in effect. For tomorrow, calls for partly cloudy skies and again a 20% chance of showers during the daytime, and those highs will reach the low 80s. Winds will shift slightly to the east at 10 to 15 knots, still with higher gusts, and seas remain rough at 5 to 10 feet, but conditions should ease by evening, becoming moderate to rough with wave heights of 4 to 6 feet. Now, because of that, the small craft advisory is expected to be discontinued by tomorrow evening. There is going to be a high tide. Oh, there was just a high tide at 5:03 and a low tide at 11:52 this evening. Another high is at 7:17 a.m. tomorrow. Now, sun will set today at 6:22 and sunrise tomorrow at 6:56. The outlook calls for a gradual decrease in winds and seas from late Wednesday as the high pressure system weakens while moving over the Atlantic. There you have it for all of you boaters and all of your persons who are planning maybe pre-Valentine celebrations. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But you know what? We can make you know whether or not you should plant it indoor or outdoor. And even if you want to still venture outdoors, know how to prepare yourself. Happy birthday to everybody who's celebrating a birthday today, anniversary, just celebrating life. We do this in general right now. And, I'm just happy to share any moment with all of us and from all of us here on the Sabrina Speaks family. Now, what's making our headlines roundup for today? Right here, February 10th. Yes. It is, let's see what's making its rounds. Oh my God, you'd be surprised how much is actually happening. But let's keep it local. If you didn't know, the Utility Regulations and Competitions Office has unveiled a proposed new rate framework for electricity service on Cayman Brac. Now, the plan aims to modernize how rates are calculated, improve long-term stability, and ensure the system keeps pace with the island's growing energy needs. Now, officials say public consultation will be part of the process before any changes are finalized. And while regulators look at the future of electricity on our sister islands, government also is preparing for a major transparency review. Premier Andre Ebanks is defending the Cayman Islands legitimate interest ownership register as the territory approaches a key review in 2027. He says the register strikes the right balance between transparency, privacy, and international compliance, and remains an important part of Cayman's global reputation. Now, the financial sector is also facing new proposal because SEMA consults on tougher AML rules. Yes, the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority has launched a consultation and strengthening anti-money laundering rules. The proposed updates aim to tighten oversight, enhance reporting standards, and align Cayman with evolving global expectations. Now, industry stakeholders are being invited to submit feedback before the rules are finalized. And meanwhile, the cost of living remains front and center of many households. And the Premier says energy prices are a key part of that challenge. And Premier Ebanks says lowering energy costs remains one of government's top priorities as Cayman continues to confront rising living expenses. He says the administration is exploring multiple strategies to ease pressure on families and businesses, including renewable energy expansion and regulatory reform. Yes. And finally, today from the local scene of things, a celebration of young talents across the islands. Yes, because the Cayman National Children's Festival of Arts is on the way, bringing together students from every district to showcase their talents in music, drama, dance, speech, and visual arts. Performances and continue over the coming weeks, and families are encouraged to come out and support Cayman's young creatives. And I got a message today, thank you, from one of our supporters here. Congratulations goes out to the Lighthouse School this morning who performed at the Harkwell Theater, and they won gold. They sung One Love, One Heart. Oh, that was so sweet. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yes, yes, yes. Congratulations to all of our students and to all of the winners. You know, we keep it regional as well because guess what? Barbados goes to the polls tomorrow. Yes. 11th of February for their general elections, and voters across the island will choose their next government in what is expected to be a closely watched democratic exercise. Now, the Commonwealth Secretary General is leading a team of observers deployed to monitor the electoral process from polling stations and campaign activity to vote count. Now, their mission is to support transparency, strengthen public confidence, and assess whether election meets international standards. Now, This is Barbados' first general election since 2022, taking place as Caribbean nations continue to navigate economic pressures and global uncertainty. Now, preliminary findings from the observers mission are expected shortly after those polls close. There you have it. And making other news from around our area, a 5.0 magnitude earthquake struck near Jamaica early this morning. Recorded at approximately 3:18 a.m. local time, the offshore tremor was felt in parts of the island. Now, this is the second quake in recent days, following another reported over the weekend. There are no immediate reports of major damage or injuries, but regional seismic agencies are continuing assessments, and authorities are reminding residents to stay alert to official updates as aftershocks can occur. Yes, there you have it. We've been getting a lot of activities in our area. And continuing with regional news around the area, we're seeing where airlines serving Cuba are reporting increasing difficulty refueling as the island's energy crisis deepens. And carriers from the Caribbean, Latin America, United States, and Canada, including Cayman Airways, Caribbean Airlines, American Airlines, Copa, and Air Canada, are among those affected. With jet fuel supplies limited at several Cuban airports, and some airlines have been forced to make technical stops in nearby countries to refuel before continuing their scheduled routes. Now, this has led to delays, rerouting, and operational adjustments for flights serving Havana and other areas in Cuba and other major gateways as well. This disruption comes, as we know, as Cuba faces worsening energy shortages, impacting transportation, power generation, and essential services nationwide. Now, airlines are advising passengers to monitor their flight status closely as this situation remains fluid. Yes, so we want to just make sure that you make sure that you actually look at that as well. And just taking a look on other headlines that really caught my attention today. A teen was sentenced in the killing of a 12-year-old Leo Ross. Yes, a 15-year-old boy in the United Kingdom has been sentenced to at least 13 years in custody for murdering 12-year-old Leo Ross, who was attacked while walking home from school in Birmingham last year. Now, the teenager, who could not be named for legal reasons, pled guilty last month. Yes, now the justice, Casey, told the court that the killer had been riding around a park looking for a victim, choosing Leo because he was a smaller boy. The judge said the teen appeared to take pleasure from seeing the consequences of his actions, describing his behavior as cool and rational. Leo was stabbed in the stomach on the 21st of January, and he is made as he made his way home from school. His parents told the court that their son's life should be just beginning, remembering him as the kindest little boy. Police says Leo had no connection to his attacker. The judge also revealed that the teen had carried out a savage attack on 3 elderly women in the park shortly before killing Leo. Now, the 13-year-old term is minimum, and parole board will decide if and when he could be safely released. Now, there are some of the news topping your headlines today. And, that's how we will be doing it here. But it's good to be back with you this afternoon here for another episode of Sabrina Speaks. Hey, Marshall, how you doing? Good evening to you. Donnie, good afternoon to you as well. Jimbo's in the house. I had to turn the air conditioner back on. Things are beginning to, but Jimbo, I must say it got cooler. I would say mid-afternoon. So at least here in Prospect, it got a little cooler, and the breeze was definitely cooler. But yeah, I agree with you. It started to warm up, hoping it could last a little longer. Hey, Miss Barbara, how are you? Good evening to you as well. Thank you for that lovely rose. And yes, right. Keep Connie in her place. Give her that hibiscus. Yes, you keep her right where she is. Hey, Miss Lucille, our UK crew is joining us this afternoon. Good evening. Blessings to you. Love you as always. Buenas tardes. Puerta Vida. Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo estás? And oh my gosh, you got me stuck in Spanish now. Barantes. And Annie, how are you? Good to have you joining us as well. Damian Henry, always good to have you here too. Horace, I'm waiting on it. Waiting on what? Are you speaking to somebody else? For the topic, I'm hoping. Yes. It's going to be fluid. I'm going to share it with you. But again, for all of you who actually have been possibly victims of there not being any legislation in Cayman, because surrounding this, I want to hear from you as well. Just look at Fernando Mendez and the Pink Cottage scandals if you want to see the unhinged. Oh my, yeah, I'm seeing this. Thank you guys for sharing this. And but there's laws there's laws that is there, so it is interesting. I will take a look at that, but to just keep on track. But guess what, the phone lines are open, 345-936-8255 if you want to be a part of this discussion. Jeff, thank you for sharing that with me. Jennifer, good afternoon to you, my dear. Sonia, blessings to you as well. And welcome to all of you. Yes. So for all of you who just joining us, and I think I see you guys are filing in one at a time. Happy to have you here. Happy to bring you up to speed. And many of you know, as I said at the beginning, that Cayman has a law design that protects renters and sets the level playing field for both landlords, even creates a new position as well, but more so to protect renters from unfair, unsafe, and exploitation. But it has never been brought into force. And I'm hoping that this episode will actually break it down, how modern tenancy law was passed in 2009, but unfortunately shelved indefinitely, and left thousands of persons who are renting exposed to this day to, some call them slum landlord behavior, with almost no legal recourse. Because from overcrowded rooms, be it by design or not, to withheld deposits, to unsafe living conditions that we have heard voiced here on this space, I'm hoping that this episode will ask the question Cayman has avoided for years. Who benefits then when a law exists on paper, but not in practice? Because that's exactly the environment that we have here in the Cayman Islands. And you, as our viewers, subscribers, listeners as well, you're invited to share your stories, be it you wanted to do it openly or anonymously with the WhatsApp, whatever. But we love to hear from you as we explore what accountability should look like in a country facing already a housing crisis, supply and demands, and we're trying to keep up with everybody else. So again, 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be a part of the conversation this evening. Yes. Now, let me just put it into context for you. And what I'm talking about, based on the caption of today's episode, is the law passed but never lived. And let me set the stage for you a little bit, because I went through this residency tenancy law of 2009, pretty much line by line for some time. You would have heard me actually made some mention of it on Friday last week with the open mic. But I really got an opportunity to go into it a little bit more. And because there were utterances, and you hear it all the time, that some of the places that even what government is paying funding for is squalor. It's squalor. And how can government be paying rent to some of these places that really begs to question the conditions that they're being kept, and that landlords are just collecting rent and they're not actually doing what they're supposed to do. But you understand why now. You understand why, right? Because it's open season. It's the wild, wild west when it comes to a legal framework and a law that governs how this practice actually happens. But it's not like you don't have a foundation. We do. Just that the foundation was never enacted. Now imagine a law carefully crafted, widely supported, and paused by our elected representatives. And that piece of law promised, or promises, because it's still there, fairness, safety, dignity for every tenant and landlord in our country. But imagine that law just sitting idle, never enacted, never enforced, never brought to life. This is the story of the Residential Tenancy Act, or Tenancy Law of 2009. And you can Google it yourself. This is a law with all good intentions, from what I can see thus far, with us having literally nothing now, but no legal effect. And today we must ask, why? From whence we came. In my research and preparing my notes today, it looks as though in the wake of Hurricane Ivan, the cracks in our rental housing system were laid bare. And what we found from that in 2004, when Ivan struck, tenants were evicted without notice. And we saw where landlords struggled as well to recover rent. There were unsafe living conditions that went unchallenged. And this and the existing laws, some dating back to the 1800s, were simply not fit for purpose. So the Residential Tenancy Law 2009 was designed to fix that. Because this particular law that never came in effect, it offered clear rights and responsibility to both the landlords and the tenants. It also provided legal protections against arbitrarily evictions and unsafe housing. And it also provided a fair process of recovering possessions and rent, mediation and court oversight to resolve disputes should that ever happen. And it also provided a modern framework for registering even long-term leases. But it was a blueprint for more transparent, and at that time, like I said, a modern Cayman, knowing what we had went through post the hurricane. Now, despite being passed by the then Legislative Assembly, and now our Parliament being called today, the law was never brought into force. No commencement order, no implementation, no explanation. The silence has consequences. And we're seeing that now pretty much daily. So what we saw, I'll copy it in a second. What we saw is that this whole law, part of it, had some serious implications. And then it begs the question, what is the human cost of inaction? That is the bigger topic, because we see where people are actually suffering because of this not being enacted. Okay, I'm going to copy the link here and I'm going to post it. I see your request, Jimbo. Let's hope you guys can click on this and you should see it. There you go. Yeah. Because without this law, what continues to happen is that tenants, landlords, the courts, and by society in itself remains impacted. Okay. Where tenants is concerned, without this law, tenants remain vulnerable to eviction without cause. They remain subjected to rent hikes without notice and substandard living conditions without recourse. And where the landlord actually, without having this law. Landlords face uncertainty, relying on just outright outdated common law and legislations to recover rent or even possession. Like what I described, it's the wild, wild west. And then where the court is concerned, they too are left to interpret 19th century principles in the 21st century housing market. And when you look at our society in general, they are left with a legal vacuum, and a vacuum of one that undermines trust, fairness, and actually the rule of law. So when you put it all together, this is not just a legal issue at the end of the day. It's a social injustice issue. It's a governance issue. And really and truly, it's a missed opportunity to modernize our country, because we cannot say we haven't heard stories of persons who have fallen victims, right? And you can say it's even on both sides, but more so, you hear the stories from renters. But the question we must ask, why was this law never, ever enacted? That's the big question. Was it political hesitation? Was it pressure from vested interests? Administrative delay? Whatever the reason is, the result is the same, no matter what the result or the reason is, right? Because a law that could have protected thousands left dormant for so long. It's been left dormant. But you didn't ask the question, is it too late? No, it's not. You have the right to ask your representatives, look, we understand starting something from scratch could take a while, and in many cases may not be in this particular term. But that's not the case with this piece of legislation. You have the legislation that has been done from 2009. Yes, there is a possibility that this could come to life. At least you're starting from somewhere. It's not a massive rewrite. It's not that you coming to the table with a blank canvas. This country has an opportunity that we can still choose fairness over confusion, protection and exploitation, and progress over paralysis. Let's call it what it is. And you have the right to call on our leaders to explain why this law was shelved or has been shelved, even if they started to bring it forward for whatever reason it didn't go away. And there could be a plethora of reasons given. Let's look at the now. Let's look at the now. Okay? Look at the now. When you're looking at everything that we're happening, you're hearing in the headlines, cost of living, people are not listened, felt like they're not listened to. Here is, in my humble opinion, a low-hanging fruit. And you cannot say that you have not heard the cries of people. Now, is it because those cries may be in larger number of non-Caymanians? Then, my dear, if that's the reason, we got a bigger problem on our hands, because it means then that we're not about fairness. Is that the case? I don't know. I don't know. Did you weigh it? Who is being subjected to certain treatments and behaviors and surroundings? But I can tell you what, we have Caymanians that are renting as well, who have suffered under slum landlords. We have Caymanians that have went and complained to the Department of Environment, who have paid their rent on time. And they're not at all concerned, landlord, that means, not at all concerned at improving the surroundings, because whether or not they get paid. But with the historical context that I'm sharing with you, And with this piece of legislation being shelved, now you can answer why that continues to happen. Because this law that has never been enacted allows them to get away with it. So it asks you, where is fairness in that? That's the question. Yes, as Jim said here, the vulnerable are being exploited, but at whose expense, especially if government is paying for the rent? Is that fair? Is that value for money? It's not value for money. It's inhumane. And you're right, Jim. The vulnerable are being exploited. Yes. Aliano, look, I'm for a basic law with all the bells and whistles, but let's call a spade a duck trying to be a hawk. The people that make up the demographics of rent market, it's night and day who rents what, who are bad rental customers, and what income divide makes up the rent product. Okay, thank you for that insight. But it doesn't mean that as a jurisdiction, we shouldn't have some sort of legislation. Like I said, look at our pecking order globally with wealth. Not telling you that we do not have pockets of persons who just are not up to whatever. But when you look at that happens all around the world. But there's just certain standards I'm feeling in legislation from this for the purpose of this discussion that should actually be in place. And it will floor you all of what was broken down in this law. And I've given you it here. I've shared the link that was covered under this piece of legislation. So the big question is, why was it not enacted? Yeah, why? Was it too much things? It's not a priority? Or is it what Aliano had to say? Andrew Campbell, this is a serious socioeconomic issue facing our islands. The domino effect that this puts on our society is monumental. As our population grows, busting at the seams, it only gets worse. And this is why I applaud the minister for taking on that bill, that topic that we covered yesterday when it came to foreclosures. But look at how this one then ties into even modernizing, even though that's a bill, that's not yet a law. We have this one, residential tenancy law of 2009, that was actually passed, meaning it's already done. It at that time had already gone through the legal drafting, the amendments, the public consultation, was debated on the floor of the Legislative Assembly and passed. Obviously assented, I stand to be corrected, but never enacted. The question is why? Why? And when you look at the entire areas that it covers, part 1 to 3 of this law pretty much covers, and it applies to most residential tenancies with exceptions. There were exceptions in this though, you know. And the exceptions were like hotels, employer provided housing. Yes, there were some exceptions that did not come in that. Yes, Jim, I agree. You got to ask the gatekeepers. Thank you for posting that. It's a combination of both. It's a combination of both because the gatekeepers, the operational arm of our government, follows instructions, sir. They follow instructions. The gatekeepers with the pace, and it all depends on what instructions are given, then you keep at it. But what I'm saying, this shouldn't be anything that you're starting from scratch. It's already there. Okay? And when we look at the sections, going back to the sections, it covers like how the law is applied and who it actually exempts in some cases. Maybe that is one of the things that they would have to look at, because whether or not it's a hotel or employer provided housing, it should be just certain standards that should be maintained. Nationally, there should be a standard. And then it actually covers tenancy agreements. Like, these tenancy agreements can be either written or oral, and it could be periodic or by term, and certain terms employed by law even as they're written down. And what we must look at then, where responsibilities, the rights and the responsibilities that were also covered in this law, is that it outlines that tenants under this law that was never enacted, please note, just in case you're just joining us, this residential tenancy law of 2009 is just a topic for discussion this evening, but the law is not in effect. It was never enacted. The big question is, why not? Okay. And I'm covering what the sections in a high synopsis, broad overview for discussion purposes, to open your eyes for you to ask the right questions of your elected politicians or leaders as to why this can't be something that they actually bring over the table, look at under a fresh set of eyes without anything major. Because obviously, when you look and you click on the link that I've provided, you can see you already have the foundation, right? So under the rights and responsibilities as outlined in this law that was never enacted, it clearly outlines what tenants must do. And what tenants must do in this law is that they must pay rent on time, keep the property reasonably clean and undamaged, avoid illegal use or nuisance or being a nuisance, and tenants are responsible to get the landlord's consent before making any alterations or subletting, subleasing. And tenants' responsibility as well under this section, be responsible for guests' behavior and also should their guests damage their place. Okay? It also looks and covers in a broad, I'm not going line by line. I can't. We would need at least 2 days. In this law and in this part as well about responsibility, it also covers and outlines that the landlord must provide a property fit for human habitation, meaning clean, safe, with working utilities. That the landlord must maintain structure, sanitation, and essential services. That the landlord must comply with health and safety laws, and that the landlord must reimburse tenants for emergency repairs if the landlord fails to act. Yes, that is a section that is covered in this law. And also, when it comes to access and privacy, it also says that landlords must also give notice, usually 24 to 48 hours, before entering, except in an emergency. And covered under access and privacy as well, that the landlord's entry without consent or court order is unlawful. And it also under privacy and access, it also outlines that tenants can't unreasonably refuse lawful entry once the steps are followed. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I have a question.
Go ahead.
In this law, now, I have a rental. I am a landlord. I am an impeccable landlord. I give all the bells and whistles. Beautiful apartment. And I rent it only for $1,500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the nicer apartments on island.
Mm-hmm.
And I put a lot of money into it, not once, not twice, but several times.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody chooses, this is the question that I'm kind of like torn on. If someone chooses not to run the central AC,
Mm-hmm. Their choice.
Windows are left open, then it starts affecting any type of metals chrome,
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing in the unit.
Mm-hmm.
Fixtures, it damages furniture. You can get mold, you can get mildew. You can ruin, material like sofas, bedding, all that kind of stuff. Is this the responsibility of the landlord?
It would be, unless you have it clearly defined as to what ventilation means in your terms and conditions of your agreement, your rental agreement. This is where you're in the wild, wild west and operating. You have to protect yourself, that is mutually agreed as the landlord and the tenant, of what your terms and definition means when it comes to ventilations and opening of windows.
Well, I honestly thought I had covered all bases except for putting, the apartment cannot go any higher than 80 degrees. Let's just put an 80 degree mark on there. I that did not go in there because for 30 years I have rented an apartment.
Right.
I've never had an issue with a tenant before that can clearly afford to run the AC, but just chooses not to save money. And
you may actually have to look at the terms and conditions that's baked into your contract, and that may be based on there not being any enacted regulations like this. That's a simple.
I don't have it listed in the lease. The lease is 6 pages long. It's very detailed, but that was just something that I wasn't even considering because, like I said, being a landlord, as long as I had, I never had issues with anybody not running the air conditioning, for the apartment. And like I said, brand new furniture, and it's all getting ruined now because of the salt air.
Oh, wow. Well, that would honestly be a civil matter between you and them because, again, it's in the air. May the best man win where it was clear. But my gut tells me, and I'm not being a legal person, that you're unfortunately would have to stand at loss if that tenant chooses to not run the air conditioning.
Right.
But that unfortunately, you would have to bear that loss. They couldn't be held responsible because they choose not to run the air conditioning that ultimately then destroyed your furniture. Now, maybe based on argument's sake, you can have a discussion, making sure that it is well documented and agreed should midway through the lease, the terms, and for clarity purposes, for expansion purposes, have a meeting and say, look, this is usually how it is. And, have a good conversation and see at least.
Been there, done that. I even went online. I got all the information of how short it takes for things to start deteriorating, almost even a week.
Right.
All it takes is a week for the salt air to start affecting fixtures like chrome.
Yeah.
And it's already damaged the fixtures in the apartment. That's going to have to be replaced. And like I said, I had put so much money into this apartment prior to this individual moving in, and now it's almost like I'm going to have to strip it and start all over again when they move out.
Yeah, because of their choice to not use the air conditioning, which has multiple reasons. Well, Jimbo, I'm so sorry.
And I like I said, I went online. I went to AI. I went to Google, and I did all the research, and page after page after page. And I presented all of that to him to let him know what he's doing to an apartment that doesn't even belong to him. And I thought he would have a little bit more respect as a tenant because I have been such a decent landlord, not only to him, but everybody who has lived in that apartment.
Well, again, it goes to may the best man win, but obviously you have made certain efforts to actually justify why. And if there's a deposit, that could be considered damage. So maybe they don't give crap.
He said that it's considered under the terms of normal wear and tear. Well, to me, that's not normal wear and tear.
No, because you have evidence where you prove that based on our soil content and wherever this location is, that it actually does a number, and you have provided evidence that can support that. So
Right.
at the end of the day, watch it carefully, but remember, you still have the deposit that may only just begin to scratch the surface of what it's replacing of everything. Can you imagine?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yes. It's going to cost thousands of dollars.
Yeah. I see where Andrew is asking, does the rental contract stipulate that the tenant must utilize the central air conditioning at all times and kept at a specific setting? The contract is the mandate. And Andrew, I think the caller explained that.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's something I didn't think I had to, being in the Caribbean, as hot as it is, that somebody would have common courtesy, having that opportunity just to leave it at 80, 82 degrees, just so the humidity and the moisture does not build up in there.
Yeah.
And like I said, because the mold and mildew, am I going to be responsible for his health if there ends up being mold and mildew in there?
But you see, that is where you have proof that you've done your research to justify. And God forbid if one was to come back and says, you didn't address the mold issue that was actually agitated by their actions, which you had previously warned, had multiple, and you have proof to prove it, then it becomes a civil matter. And it's, oh gosh, because you may actually have to get crafty with how that person leaves.
Yeah.
To avoid any further damage. There are always ways. The good thing on your side is that you have no law.
Right.
It's sad. It is sad, but if you're trying to be reasonable, you can demonstrate where you have provided all sorts of evidence that can justify what you're saying, and they choose to go otherwise because it's not baked into your lease, then Jim, it's a no-brainer what you got to do.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Andrew. So I hope that was actually explained to you. Plain and straight, isn't the tenant responsible to do or not to do anything that causes damage to the apartment or its contents? Yes, and it is with the scenario that was placed here based on the caller's plain and straight, it's a little tricky because let's say I'm somebody who just can't deal with air conditioning. And if it was not made clear to me from the onset that, at all times, for whatever reasons that's stipulated in the lease, this is why, as the landlord, I say that one of the conditions with renting this apartment that you have to keep the air conditioning running and it should not go any higher than 80. And you outline that. You can't just assume. I may be somebody who just can't take AC. Maybe where I'm coming from, I'm not accustomed to it. Maybe it triggers my sinuses. Maybe you just got some people that just they can't handle the AC. And because of that, and not using the air condition, it caused damage to the property. If they were made aware of this from the get-go, then you could say, yes, they would be responsible. But in this particular scenario, that was not clear. So plain and straight, it's splitting hairs, but I think at the end of the day, with what efforts has been made, what has been shared by the caller, that I would say it's may the best man win. I don't think they're going to be a happy medium if the damage continues, to be honest, because both right now have their rights with, of course, this binding lease agreement not being specific to, you got to keep on the air conditioning. Can you imagine? Yeah. So it all depends. This particular incident is, it's a little tricky. Denver says, hold the deposit money and give notice due to destruction of property. That's a direction. Yes, you're late and you miss your hibiscus from Jim as well, Connie Bonnie. But it'll be interesting how this all plays out. But Jimbo, like I said, read the room, and based on what rent and for the replacement with the cost of fixtures and all that sort of stuff. Now that's not even going to scratch the surface for you, but to avoid further deterioration and destruction of your property, because you are able to demonstrate and prove that where this apartment is, it's best to just keep the air conditioning running and not open the windows for fear of deterioration of the furniture and the fixtures, of course. So, yeah, I think you have to be very clear right now. And this is why this space is so important, that certain things that you would think, well, that common sense. What do you mean? We're living here. Common sense, not so common all the time. And you have to understand the mixed cultures that we have here. Not everybody, cultures, where they're coming from, it's not one and same. Some people come from countries where they don't need air conditioning because of the breeze or the climate and all that sort of stuff. They've never seen the ocean until they came here or on their way here from a flight. So little things, just specific to the caller, that you have to think. Do not just be so insular. You need to almost try to get a contract that would actually cover. And the good thing, Jim, is that I shared the link so you can see the responsibilities. That in itself should actually be the foundation of your possible next rental and lease agreement that actually brings both some fairness and some balance. But right now, until this law is enacted, it's the wild, wild west. Good evening, caller, and welcome to the show. How are you?
Fine, Sabrina, how are you today?
Fair to fine, giving thanks, trying to deal with the slum landlords and the residential tenancy law of 2009.
Yes, like you might need maybe a socialist law.
Let me tell you, oh my God, and it's one thing of me preparing for these podcasts and you actually do it. And you brought that to my attention, doing these laws that are never been enacted or even bills line by line. It's amazing what you pick up when you do it line by line.
Yeah. It's just amazing because you see the other problem about reading laws is that now this is not something that I ever did when I used to write laws.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you are writing a law, it's like this is the same. I won't call it a trick. It's the same practice some people adopt.
Mm-hmm.
Like they try to put the more controversial provisions either at the end of the act or at the end of the section and so forth. Like just put it in the most inconspicuous place.
I caught that a couple times here. And I was like, okay, why didn't it mention here? Because it would make more sense. It's relative. And then you see a subsection 6 and then it's 7. But no, you didn't need to create an 8 or a 7. That could have been in 5. But you're like, okay, I see why it's a different subsection. Okay.
Yeah, so it's one of those, but I never did it myself, but I know that it does happen out there.
Yeah.
About your previous caller, I'm sorry that he's having to go through that problem because, as you have rightly pointed out, the deposit will just scratch the surface because that seems like it might require some general repainting, rescaling, this and that, and so on. But nothing much really to add other than what you've said, because the best thing is always to put in an express provision to say that the temperature shall remain at a certain number, a certain temperature. I recall when I first came to Cayman, the lease that I had, I think it specifically said that, but this was like a lease being managed by one of the big real estate companies, so their contract had it there. But one of the things that this is just a line of inquiry, because under the general law, whether or not you have a lease, there are certain implied duties of the landlord and the tenant. The most obvious one, the landlord, the tenant pays the rent and you receive the rent. And then there is a general duty for the tenant to take reasonable care of the apartment. Things such as to keep it clean and so forth. I mean, if certain things become stained in the apartment, you don't need a provision to say that the person should clean it. Of course, they should clean it. They should take care of it in such a way that it does not degrade beyond what is absolutely necessary. I mean, if I keep opening a door handle, at some point the metal there and so forth will in some way become so old and so much wear and tear, it won't work very well. If I'm walking on the carpet, on the floor, and this and that, that is normal wear and tear. But what is being described here, that's not normal wear and tear because it is preventable. So one way in which it could be viewed is that by failing to use the AC, the person basically is not taking good care of the apartment in the circumstances. Now, you spoke about some people who might come to a place and they don't know like how the weather there works. But in this case, that's not even an issue because he has given notice to the person. Okay.
Yeah, but that was long after they realized that they weren't using. And of course, if one is going to challenge it, it's not your typical person. They're going to say, well, it just does not say that I have to keep on the air conditioning because to save your place. And they just pretty much say, that's normal wear and tear. In this law, Section 36 clearly outlines tenants' responsibilities as I saw. And Section 40 actually covers the landlord's responsibilities. And when you says about that, this is a unique situation from the caller because I think based on where they're probably located, they have to put it in at no time whilst living here, unless it's an emergency, windows should be open. The air condition should not be in excess of 80. And the AC should be running. That needs to be explicit only because of the diversity of persons that he may actually have now coming up to rent his property.
Yes. And that is necessary. The only reason I'm even getting into this issue about being reasonable is like, you see, as a lawyer, when a client comes in and gives you this problem.
Correct.
Straight away, you try to say
reasonable, rational, proportionate.
Straight away you'll tell the person, just like what you have said, Sabrina, this would be tricky because it is not expressly said.
Correct.
Now, if you get stuck, then you might say, well, like if it really becomes a problem, then you might say, well, look, I mean, maybe when you came in, you didn't know that this would be the effect. But once I give you the notice, then certainly regarding any damage that happens after I give you the notice, you will be liable because now you are not taking good care of it. Because taking good care of it includes you being able to keep the AC on. And you see, the duty of the landlord also is to ensure that they give you all the necessary tools to help you take care of the apartment. For example, that's why you find when you go into a lease, they will have the brooms, the this and that, all the things that you will need in order for you to be able to take care of it. So yeah, it's tricky. It is a little tricky.
It's really tricky. But like I said, if it was me, the landlord, and I'm seeing where you, because the lease has already started, and because I erred as the landlord in not being specific because I thought that would be what one may think common sense, because of the personality. And after pointing out the obvious, I know what I would do. Give notice. There are a number of ways that we can go around this. And you, my learned friend, would know, because this law is not enacted, it's the wild, wild west.
Yeah. And you're right. That's one of the options. I mean, this thing that I'm trying to say is not taking reasonable care. As a practical matter, to admit it really is not very practical in the sense that you can only win if you go to court. So is it worth going to court?
Exactly.
The lawyer will charge you $400 an hour and then the rent is only $1,300. It's just one of those technical things. But as a practical matter, yes, Sabrina, it needs to look at the possibility of terminating the lease.
Mhm.
If it has a termination clause in it, and if it is not too restrictive, then he can issue a termination. That would be the practical way really to deal with it.
Yeah. Just follow the terms and conditions of the termination by the letter, because you realize the individual, the tenant that he's dealing with, that has to be followed to the last full stop to avoid any repercussions or maybe further damage.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not something. A lot of leases, you know, it's not worth going to court because it's not worth it. You know, 2 hours of work, 2 hours of work, or 3 hours of work will be the monthly rental and so forth. I mean, it's really not. Yeah, but as a practical matter, in future, to have that expressly in the lease. For now, as a practical matter, just to give him notice that, well, I'm giving you notice to terminate, unless there's no termination clause, or unless the termination clause is too restrictive. Okay, you know, there are certain things which are restrictive, like you know. But anyway, those will be the lines of inquiry. In fact, while you were talking, I went back to the current Landlord and Tenant Act in Cayman. This is the one which is going to be repealed when the Residential Tenants Act
that one took effect. What year?
Which one? The
tenant.
Landlord and Tenant?
Yeah.
Let me see when it was enacted. It's really old. Because,
exactly.
Yeah, it's really old because it was first enacted in 1964.
There we go.
1964, and when you read it, Sabrina, you will see that it was done a long time ago because it has got these like one. I'm looking at section 2 here. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 15 lines, one sentence going on for 15 lines.
Oh, wow.
You know? And then you've got the remedy for the landlord for fraudulent removal of goods, section 3. That one has got about 17 lines and so on. But anyway, it just shows you it was done a long time ago, and the way it's done. You see, normally when you do a Landlord and Tenant Act, you normally have a part to say these are the automatic duties of the landlord, unless the lease says otherwise. And then you go to the next heading, it says these are the duties of the tenant, unless you say otherwise.
Oh, this one, sir,
there may be,
not to disrupt you, it says at the residential, this is at the beginning of this residential tenancy law of 2009, just making sure we keep it straight, even though it was not enacted. A law to reform the law relating to residential tenancy to define the rights and obligations of landlords and tenants of residential premises, to provide for a commissioner to mandate disputes arising between landlords and tenants, to repeal the Landlord and Tenancy Law of 1988 revision for incidental and connected purposes. So this one was steered directly to protect both persons and to create a new position.
Exactly. And that 1998 was just a revision. 88, yeah. The original enactment was 1964.
Oh God!
So that revision was so that was merely meant, like to add some amendments. But really, this has to be done. It's very interesting. I was looking at the 2009 law, the same residential tenancies. You know who was speaker at that time? It was the Honorable Edna
Moyle. Yes, and yes.
That just tells you how long ago it was.
Because that was passed.
It's a lady who
yes, it was passed in the Legislative Assembly on the 19th of March, 2009 by the then Speaker Edna Moyle was Speaker then.
Edna Moyle, who I had the privilege to meet her when she was Speaker. Very, very great lady. May her soul rest in peace. But let me. Yesterday I was listening to the chat that you were having about the Registered Land Act, which is related to this. It's very, very interesting because of the questions you are asked. Yeah, the bill, yes. Yeah, the bill, yes. You see, some of the questions you are asking today about the Residential Tenancies Act might be asked also about the Registered Land Bill, in the sense that why has it taken a long time? why has it taken such a long time for the registered land bill to come out? When really this issue relating to mortgages has been going on for a long time. I first got involved in it in 2018, when the Honorable Kenneth Bryan was in the backbench, and he really was pushing this hard. And I was part of a team that he had put together to look at it. And at that time, it was suggested. He suggested actually that there should be a committee of parliament which should be put together, and that once they should finish their work in 6 months and so forth. But somehow he was not able to push it forward because he didn't get the sort of support that he needed. So, I mean, when you look at the number of people who have lost their homes, I remember those cases which came out in the paper. A guy really with kids, and he was trying to hold on to his house. They sold it. And a few months later, they sold it for 3 or 4 times the amount. And I mean, and somehow government was just really sitting around. And I remember Steve McField as well was pushing this very hard. He was part of the team, by the way, which Kenneth Bryan put together. And he kept referring to what is called the Consumer Credit Act in the UK, which allows people, particularly when you are, and you touched on this yesterday, particularly when the house is a primary residence, it's not an investment property. There's greater protection there. But anyway, it's good that it's been done now. Unfortunately, it is kind of late, but let's see.
Better late than never, because this one that we're speaking about, the residential tenancy law, is definitely something that there's an appetite for in our society, and it speaks volumes of our jurisdiction should legislations like this, and you named out a few that are just shelved right there now, that now is the time that we should actually unearth some of these legislation that a lot of work has already gone into, that it would be relevant today. And as we continue to modernize as a jurisdiction, we're looking at, being one of the jurisdictions to lead the charge and so much other things that could actually, and we see where we're busting at the seams, where supply and demand for housing. Why not bring this up now? Because if we continue to label ourselves leading the charge in infrastructure of, let's say, connective, with internet to attract the financial services, we're seeing where, whether or not we like it or not, that you and I had the public discussion supported by a lot of our viewers, admit that even with this immigration reform, we are going to see our population continue to grow, and it will not possibly settle for what? Maybe another 10 years, if not longer. I stand to be corrected with that timeline. So why not do something like this? Because we're going to have our very own persons renting.
Yes. And you see, all over the world, there is this demand. There has been this demand for a long time to deal with the issue of landlord and tenants, because generally speaking, the landlord is always in a stronger position than a tenant. Okay, the landlord owns the property, and when you balance it, when you look at the two, usually the person who is renting is the person who is the weaker person economically.
Yes, there was
So even in the UK, they had a rent act going back to 1972. Okay, where they created certain obligations of like default obligations of the landlord and the tenant, and also they protected the rate of increase of rent. In places, even in some places in Canada today, when you want to get rid of a tenant, in certain circumstances, you can only do so if you want to use it yourself. You know, in other words, there is a lot of need to protect, especially the tenants, but also the landlords, because I mean they invest in the property, and they need to get something from their investment. But really, Cayman is behind on this issue of landlord and tenant. In some places in Canada, as you know, you can't have a provision in a lease which prohibits pets.
You can't. You cannot.
you cannot, so now this is because animal rights groups pushed
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and so forth
Mhm.
and so forth, but maybe Cayman hasn't got there yet, although some people again do put that specific, and I know in Cayman in some places they specifically say no pets. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
And some will say that if there is a pet, this is what you have to do to ensure that you keep the
And
place.
some people do
uh,
charge a separate deposit should there be, or a higher deposit for pet
mhm.
dander and for accidents and that sort of stuff. Because not everybody's
Yeah.
trains their pets to not pee on the area rug or in the couch. And pets are pets. It all depends on what pet too. I'm just thinking dogs and cats, but it could be any kind of pet.
Mhm. Exactly. And you see, a lot of people, you see, the problem that your caller has, which is that provision was not in. It actually happens in other areas as well, and that is why you need a Landlord and Tenant Act to be able to bring out these things, to say these are the duties of the landlord, these are the duties of the tenant, and these are the other issues that you might want to deal with.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. In the general
And
provisions that could make room for anything else. But again, vigilance, open communication, documented, get some sort of a mutual agreement. And we're not talking this day age about a handshake. You need to have something in writing and witnessed by at least two other persons that doesn't have an interest.
Yeah, in fact, if I remember correctly, in the Cayman Islands, if you have a lease that exceeds 1 year, you have to have it registered. If I
Correct.
remember correctly, that's why most leases are usually 1 year, because then you don't have to register them.
Correct.
But
Correct.
very quickly on the registered lands law, from what I learned in the course of working on that small group, which Kenneth Bryan put together. What we have in Cayman up to now are called the demand loans. They are not mortgages properly so called, because a mortgage properly so called has got greater protection. And you remember that it used to be that the current law is that if you are going to foreclose, you give notice 3 months, and you can, if somebody doesn't pay for 3 months, you give notice, and then you can possess, and you can even sell it, so long as the law says it should be sold by public auction, right?
Right.
And the matter went to court one time as to whether, if you publish it publish the sale or the offer to sell on the Cereba website,
Cereba MLS.
That amounts exactly, whether that amounts to selling by auction. And there were two contradictory court cases on that. One said, yes, that's good enough. It's as good as an auction for legal purposes. Another one says it's not good enough. But Chief Justice Mary finally gave a ruling to say that if you put it on that website, that says for legal purposes, it satisfies the provision. So, I mean, all these issues, I hope that they have dealt with. I haven't read the bill.
It's only 40 pages long. It's 40 pages long. It's not a hard read for you. Yeah, I say it like that because it's really, for you, it's not a hard read. For you, it wouldn't be a hard read. Well, your questions will probably slow you down. Why you wouldn't? What I suggest to you, people like you, how our mind works, just read it through and then go back again, and then you have your questions because some may be just splitting of hairs.
So a lot of time, just you look at what the contents are, you read through generally speaking, and you see what it is, and then if anything piques your attention in particular, then you go back and go into some detail regarding that.
Correct. Because in this law, that was never enacted, it did mention that the only thing that was stated under this old law of 60 whatever says that disposing of properties is by auction. But in this law that was passed and never enacted, they had it listing it on a public MLS system, like with so this actually has it in the residential tenancy law of 2009.
Oh, that's great, because that gives clarity to the issue. It does. Well, it's I was listening to you yesterday talk about the obligations of the bank, how they have been like expanded to ensure that before they they loan you money to buy a house, that you understand things. You remember what happened with Freddie Mac and the Fannie Mae in the US?
That came to
A
mind.
lot-
Funny enough. Yeah, it did come to mind. But I didn't go into that because that would be 2 shows.
Well, yeah, because that, well, considering what you covered yesterday, I don't see how you would have a time even to get into that. because a lot of people were buying these homes,
Yeah.
and not really being told that, frankly, we don't think you can afford this because it had so many tough conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But they were happy to just sign the document and get into the home.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as there were a few little problems, they couldn't hold on to these homes.
Correct.
And yet, if at the top, if they had enough advice, they would have been told, look, this is not worth you getting into it. And so it's good to see that this law is dealing with this. Let me tell you one case which I read about a long time ago in Australia, relating to the duties of the banks. You know the way the banks, you come in, they give you the standard contract and you sign it. And when it goes wrong, then they tell you, oh, but you should have read this. You can't do this and so on. We're taking the house. There was this couple, there were some immigrants in Australia. I think they were Greeks. You know, they didn't speak English very well. And then they had a son who was born in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And he needed to borrow money. And then he made them sign some documents. And then he failed to pay on the loan. And then the bank now was in the process of foreclosing on the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then the parents said, look, we didn't realize that we could lose the house, that the documents that we were signing. And the bank said, oh, no, but this is what the clause says. The matter went to court.
Mm-hmm.
And the court was able to say, look, as a bank, what you have done is unconscionable. Because when you knew that your clients didn't understand English very well,
Mm-hmm.
and they were signing this document, you should have sat down to explain to them what the effect of the document is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unconscionable now for you to foreclose on them. And it was like a leading case in Australia because it made banks after that become more careful before they foreclose. So the good thing about this law is now it is taking this matter out of, at least this part, out of the case law and putting it in an actual legislation so that all banks are aware that this is the way this is supposed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would love to read the registered land law a little bit more.
Yeah, I suggest you do because
see.
public consultation is there. I'm quite sure this probably will not be the last time it's discussed here. And like I was clearly yesterday just delivering exactly what the bill is saying. I couldn't answer any questions because at that part, one of it, I was able to just quickly just go through as to what is being sold and to encourage public participation, to make sure they follow, listen to what is being said. And should they have questions, they just go and they ask the questions, or should they have any suggested amendments to put them forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is very interesting that the clause 13, this is from the notes I was taking when you were talking yesterday, but it doesn't apply to existing mortgages.
No.
So
it only, here we go again, the transition, right? The transitions. So it's only if and when the legislation goes into effect.
Yeah.
So anybody who's
enter into the mortgages, you enter
correct.
Into effect after that.
After that would be under this new bill that is being proposed. So anybody right now who's already through their whole mortgage
on a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah. No, but I wonder then, hello, splitting hairs, devil's advocate. What then if I choose to leave this financial institution after the law is in effect and go to another financial institution? That would be a fresh mortgage, wouldn't it be?
That would have to be a fresh mortgage.
That then would be under the law, right?
Yeah, it will be. Well, yeah, because, well, you mean like if you go to a new financial institution and you are entering into a new mortgage, that would be a new mortgage. But if it was a kind of like a transfer between one institution and another, maybe as a continuing mortgage, there could be a gray area there. You know, there could be a gray area also, like in respect of, now that you mentioned this issue about refinancing. If you are refinancing, but it is the same mortgage, does will this apply to the refinancing aspect of the
I
mortgage?
just think we
Maybe.
identified a loophole.
Yeah, we just identified, and that it was only from what you said, when you gave that example and
Yeah.
so on, then it sent my mind also going, well, it may be that they have dealt with that, but certainly it doesn't appear that it is in clause 13. But those are the little things which breed litigation, you see. And so
Correct.
that's why you see when we learn to write legislation, one of the things that we are told, it is very easy for you to write, but always keep reading the case law, because the case law gives you this prism, this lens, which allows you to see problems when you are writing things that appear to be simple. But that one might be a loophole, yes.
Well, there we go. If you can wrap it up for me, because I see where somebody's asking about other people can call. So if you're not,
yes, please. No, I'm done. But it's been a very, very good discussion.
Thank you so much. Thanks for following.
Okay,
yes, as well.
Yeah, sure.
There you are. The phone lines are open. 936-8255 is the number to call should you want to participate in this very lively discussion, because I welcome your feedback. And, at the end of the day, it is your space. And I see where a lot of you are commenting here. And thank you so much. Jim actually says, anything and everything, livable or not, are being listed for rent. Sheds, containers, hallways, turned into kitchen, and even plywood built without insulation. Some of these places are serious fire hazards. I've heard of a story where there was somebody that was living under a stairwell, like what you would use to store like luggage or brooms, that sort of stuff, and no sort of ventilation, no windows, no nothing. And it is really bad when you hear some of the situations that actually people are living in. But before that caller called, I was getting into when entry is allowed by a landlord. And again, at any point in time, should persons want to call 345-936-8255 to weigh in and be a part of this discussion, the phone lines are open at this time. Now, when we talk about a landlord entering a premises, in this residential tenancy law of 2009, it clearly had an outline or outlines that a landlord may enter the premises, one, in an emergency. Let's say there's a fire, there's a flood, or even a glass leak. And also for inspections, but only, and they were specific, between certain times. Between, let's say, 8 and 7 p.m. Without 48-hour notice, 14 days notice, and no more than once every 8 weeks. And that was to check if, they've completed repairs within the 48-hour time, 14-day notice. And at the end of the day, if it is to check to see if repairs have been made, they need to enter between a reasonable time as well, between 8 and 7 p.m. as well, and also to carry out necessary repairs or maintenance. But the key takeaway here is that the landlords must get prior consent, to which you can't unreasonably withhold as a tenant. And you can also set reasonable conditions as well, based on what days of the week and what certain times. Now, we all know how it is in emergencies, right? We all know how it is in an emergency. So there may be times in an emergency that you ain't got no time. If the house is open, on fire, or there's a gas leak, what? I'm going to wait to get permission from you? You may not even have a place to live. So due discretion is used based on the circumstances, right? There is also in this section that clearly had outlined unlawful acts. And what it actually said is that it was illegal for a landlord to enter without following these rules, is covered in here, and a tenant to refuse entry without good reason when the landlord has their legal right to enter. And when we talked about, there were so much notes that I had on this, in regards to, I saw somebody had something about payback of deposits. In this section, it talked about security deposits. And that was pretty long, to be honest, because it actually broke it down about moving out and the signing of charges and that who was responsible. And under section 22 of this, it actually gives how deposits are supposed to be held, right? And how they're supposed to be invested. And landlords, it's stated in this piece of legislation that deposit in a savings account that earns interest. And it has a Class A bank in the Cayman Islands. That was interesting that it was outlined here. And it had outlined that you must be notified within 14 days of paying your deposit that the landlord must tell you which bank the money is in and the interest rate on the account. Well, that was a little bit far-fetched, I thought, because you don't have no control over that. And but it was quite interesting that this was outlined in this piece of legislation. Good evening, caller. Welcome. You remember the number?
Actually, I can't get through to you on the plain telephone.
Oh no, what happened?
It's saying that it's off.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I'm just telling you.
Oh, well, thank you for telling me that.
That's why I had to end up calling you.
What's that? Okay, I don't know what's going on.
I think people need to be careful what they ask for
Mm-hmm.
because they might get it.
Meaning?
You see, it
No
sounds
parables
good.
today. We coming straight.
No, there's not going to be any parables. In fact, I may lose friends today.
Okay, let's go.
The people who want this and want that and expect it to be done this way and to constrain people and this way and that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think they don't understand that all those things cost money.
Mm,
You think the landlord is going to sit around, spend their time all day writing you for free?
right.
No. What's going to happen is the rent will go up. Right? You don't have to like what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just telling you that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so what you're going to find out is that some people are going to say, well, you know what? I don't want to rent anymore. It's too much trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking my unit off the market. All of a sudden now the remainder of units on the market is having people clamoring for a place to stay and willing to pay more
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they need a place. That's caused the rent to go up. You see, it might sound simple to say, oh, you can't unreasonably withhold consent from the person. What does the legislation say happens after that?
Consent for what?
To go inside the place?
Hold on, let me get back to that section. You have it pull up?
No, I'm on the road.
Oh, okay. See, that your phone, my regular line coming in. I don't know
Okay.
what going in. I
Well-
don't know. There was some problems, so to be honest. Hold on, let me try to get there. But go ahead, talking when I get there.
You see, it might sound simple to say that you must request permission because I know that some people are having problems.
Yes, entering the home. Mm-hmm.
And then it might sound simple to say, well, it can't be unreasonably withheld.
Right.
But those types of provisions don't consider people who are unreasonable. And so what happens when the tenant says, no, I'm not allowing you to come in at all? Now,
but is that right though? Is that right though? To be honest.
No, I am being honest. I am being very honest there. The law can say you can't be unreasonably withheld.
Mm-hmm.
But at what point do you overcome this disagreement? How does the landlord, what is the clear boundary that the landlord can know that, this person is objecting,
Mm-hmm.
but the landlord needs to look at the place and they're objecting. What's the clear boundary that says, okay, I have a right to go in and won't be in problems if I do?
Mm-hmm.
Because let me put it to you this way. You know how there's a saying that says that Jesus says to turn the other cheek?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are people who believe that if someone was to attack you,
Mm-hmm.
you should turn the other cheek. But when the person retaliates,
Mm-hmm.
their response is, but he didn't say what to do after that.
Ah.
And what I'm asking you is, what happens when the tenant says no? How does the landlord know? I don't mean believe that
Conflict
he's right.
resolute. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do you resolve a
How do you
tenant?
know you're right?
Yeah. Well, I
Right?
think if
Because
you have the basic of all the rules from the get go and you discuss that
no,
from when you're
no, no, no,
interviewing
no,
your
no,
tenant.
no. We're talking about you've prescribed something in law,
Yes.
okay? And you say it can't be withheld, but 2 weeks later the person is still thinking about it. They're not telling you no.
They're still
They're
thinking whether
telling
or
you,
not to say yes or no.
yeah,
But would you not deem that unreasonable? You always
yeah,
calling it
yes,
about
but that's but
reasonable,
that,
fair,
yeah, but
proportionate based on
yes,
circumstances.
yes, but that's just my opinion. The tenant may take it that the landlord is being excessive.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I know when I can enter the place?
Mm. Hmm.
You see,
Interesting.
the problem with being prescriptive
Yeah.
is that it could take you down a road where everything is controlled, right? And
Ah,
I'm not sure that's what you want.
correct.
Here's another problem: the the decency of the place.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, According to who?
Ah.
And what if the person who's making the decision has a standard that, I don't know, maybe rests somewhere up in the stars?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then does that mean then separate from this independent act
And
law
and
that
and
we need a
and can I?
national standards?
No, no. What you need, let me tell you what you need. Because you see, a lot of people think that the government is the solution to everything. This is the problem that we have, generally speaking, in Cayman. Let me tell you what I do. If I go to a supermarket and the fruits are always spoiled,
Mm-hmm.
do you think I buy them?
No.
No, I go somewhere else. You get it? You get the hint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't rent a place that you think is not up to your standard. You go get another place. But if you're going to say that everybody has to live at this
Standard.
certain standard, you have to understand that there are some people who don't make much money. So they can't have marble countertops.
No, but even if it's for Micah, there's just a certain standard that you should keep
Listen,
your surroundings clean.
I get it. That's just a simple example.
No, I'm
It's not
being
going
the
to be,
devil's advocate, which is what I love
I
doing
know,
with you.
it's not going to be the same. You're not, you can't have the same, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so then you're going to have categories of types of units that you can
Ah.
build. You see how it just keeps
Segregating and
going.
segregate. Yes, yes,
It just
yes.
it'll never stop. You know how ridiculous it's going to get. It's going to get so ridiculous that you'll have to have your lawyer contact my lawyer in order to talk about the apartment.
Jesus. This won't be no different than the bill that's in circulation now that you have to make sure everything is explained before pen hit the paper.
Okay. What about pets in the place?
Mm-hmm.
Just as an example.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say the law requires you to allow pets. Well, people who have allergies to pets now will find it challenging to rent your place.
Correct.
See how you see how each thing has a consequence.
Consequence. Because you would have one side and then you have the other side and then you have the middle.
Okay, so what I'm saying to you is this. Look at what's happening in New York with how they have control of rent. What usually happens is if the and there are some people in Cayman who want there to be control on how much you can charge for a place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you see that happen, what is going to happen is that the rents are going to skyrocket, just like how you see them in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they're going to do is they're going to price out of the market the people who they feel are problematic.
And then that creates another problem.
Because the higher class people can afford a lawyer to review the
To
contract.
justify it, yeah.
But that leaves the average man out. If the average man can't afford what an executive can afford, you have to understand that things are going to be different. And that doesn't mean dirty and disgusting and not working. That doesn't mean that. But it cannot be the same materials for construction as an upper class unit.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything costs money.
Yep.
And you see what I think was it Jim talking about leaving the windows open?
Yeah.
All right. That's not just a problem in Cayman. That's a big problem in Florida too, because Florida is very humid, just like Cayman. Right? And so you might think it's natural, but it's still destroying your unit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, if you can't regulate, if you don't have the freedom to regulate how you want someone to treat your place,
Mm-hmm.
what if the law says no, you can't require them to have the AC on? What if the law says that, and people don't want to have the AC on?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So where does that put the landlord? You think the landlord is going to be like Jim and just accept the destruction of their place and be out of pocket the money? No.
Mm-hmm.
Jim might do that, but I can assure you that's not what's going to happen across the board. And as a result of that, you're making the landlord incur expense. Remember this principle. The customer always puts a bill. So the rent will go up.
Yeah.
That I'm not suggesting that we can't make changes to the law. But what I am suggesting to you is be careful what you ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Because you will pay for it.
But can we be in a position, which I agree with what you said, that the law needs, would you not say it would have been better to have something modernized instead of nothing at all? It's a start.
It depends on what you mean by modernized, because a socialist thinks something modern means something quite different from someone who's not a socialist.
Basically, so that it creates a level playing field for both parties and gives this jurisdiction some sort of a reputation. Because with acting under something from 1966 isn't, and we're now in 2020, 26 isn't fair either.
That question is like
Caller, I'll
asking
get to you in 1 second. I'll call you right back.
that the problem there is
Mhm.
that what you're asking is too vague, because it depends on what is being asked. So each issue has to be considered separately.
I
If you
agree
say
with
to
you,
me,
Danny, but at
if
the
you
end of the day,
if
we
you
cannot continue going down this path. It's the same thing with the EID. At some point, which a total different, oh God, I didn't go there. Take it back. Let me take that back. What I'm saying is, this is not perfect, but something is better than nothing, because right now it's the
That-
wild, wild west out there.
it is not the wild wild west. It's not. You can if I go into Foster's supermarket and there's something wrong with the product they're selling,
Mm-hmm.
Foster's is not forcing me to stay in their store and buy their product. And
You
what
go
I'm saying
someplace
to you,
else. You go someplace
that's
else.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. We're not held hostage.
Mm-hmm.
This is what freedom means. This is what it means. You're free to go and get a different apartment. If you think that this one, the carpet in this one doesn't suit your taste, find another one.
We're not talking about that part, though. I think I'm looking at it as a tenant.
No. Carpet is more than just.
No, I know,
how it looks.
I know. But what we're looking at is for those unscrupulous landlords who just take, and know that it's below standards, the conditions for the product that they're actually.
Whoa! Fosters can try as much as they want to get me to buy something that is defective as they wish.
If you don't want it, you don't buy it.
If I don't want it, I walk out the store.
Okay, I get you. So bottom line is, if you're in an environment and you're not pleased with, in this case, for the context of this conversation, how the landlord is behaving, you have a freedom of choice to leave. You don't have to put up
Yes.
with it.
That's right.
But
And
with
guess what
supplies
happens?
being little to none, Denny, where does that come in? You're putting people then to stay in
Okay.
their cars or sleeping on public beach. No fault of
That-
theirs.
Okay. Here's what you got to understand. If no one will rent that unit, what do you think the landlord's going to have to do?
Drop the rent.
If let's say you go ahead and you amend the law because you think that's the best thing to do, the best way to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say to the landlord, you have to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
And the landlord says, well, if I fix that, I'm going to have to raise the rent.
Yeah.
Or I can't afford to fix that right now.
Mm-hmm. So you put up with it or you
Right.
leave.
So what happens is that unit still goes off the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're still no better off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what are you going to do? You're going to put a provision in that says, well, if you don't do it, you can't rent it. Well, it's still off the market. So where's the person going to sleep? In their car? What's going to happen in that situation is that there will be opportunities for developers to build other apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person who refuses to fix their place will just get left behind.
Gotcha.
I think what I think will actually happen is they'll fix it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what I think will happen. Because remember, they need money too, right?
Correct.
But you see, if your mentality is that I can't take care of this myself, the government has
to take care of it.
Then the government has to come up with all of these rules that gets excessively bureaucratic.
We'll wrap it up there. I got a call back for me.
All right.
But I appreciate your call. Good to hear you.
All right. Bye.
All right, cool. There we go. What are your take on this? What are your take on this? I'm going to call back a caller. I hope I get this person back. I don't know what was happening with Danny there, but I'm actually getting straight calls. So I don't know if it was where he was at, but let's see if we can take this caller It is 6:49. You're in tune to Sabrina Speaks right here on cmrtv.com. Hi, good evening. Yes, you're almost missed it. 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, I know.
How you doing?
I can.
10 minutes to go.
Wow. Okay, the timing is off a bit.
Yeah, no, you turn
good.
down your TV or whatever it is, because you're going to be competing with that, because it is a
Okay.
slight delay. So if you can turn that off and just talk to me, then it works.
Yeah. Right. All right. Calling from both sides of the fence. I I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house
Mm-hmm.
that I have up for rent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have people coming, insisting that, well, the house is too big for me. It's just me and my wife. So I want to bring in 4 friends to share the rent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's not a tenant yard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not set up for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to pay the same rent for a 1-bedroom, I think that's best you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Oh, wow.
but
So
this
they're
is
telling
what
you the
happened.
terms and conditions to,
Oh yeah.
the
Mhm.
subletting is thing. And I've heard of stories where there is a community right now where there actually is a shift system. They share
Correct.
beds. They share
I
beds.
I know about it. Yeah. So that's my side. Now I had a wonderful tenant that I went to see where she was living before she moved into mine because, well, I knew the person and I wanted to see living conditions. And she was moving out of it had a bedroom with a small bathroom in the bedroom. When you walk in, the door hit the bed.
Mm-mm.
And the only thing after that, when you walk through this bedroom/bathroom, there was a kitchen in the back that you step down, a little add-on kitchen, not even a dining table, no living room, nothing. Same exact price that I was renting.
Oh,
the
wow.
3-bedroom.
With all the amenities.
3-bedroom, 2-bath, Ocean View. And again, it was NAU.
Oh.
So it is horrible. I do not understand why they're not doing home visits before they rent these places.
Well, there's really nothing in law right now, and I see Danny's side, that actually requires them to do that. But this is the people's money that NAU is paying. And what are the standards? Again, it all depends on from what perspective you're looking at it from.
And I'm looking at it from both sides.
Exactly.
Because
So
see, I worked in the department
mm-hmm.
and in social services.
Right.
I worked there. And I went out to look at apartments before I moved my client in. And many times it was so disgusting. I'm so sweetheart. So you got to find somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't put your people in places like this. But we have people that are not used to anything else. And that's why all the garbage is happening.
It's a norm. It's a norm for them. Mm-hmm.
Yes, correct. There is no standard,
mm-hmm.
And it can't happen in my yard.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm seeing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm getting the ones trying to push it into my yard, not in this yard. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You got parking for 2 cars and that's it. And no loud music and garbage. But that is what is out there.
Oh, wow. I see where Denver says, a community of all imported poverty have been doing that for years without tenants even knowing. And what we're seeing is that the same thing is happening with certain parts of the UK as well. They're saying that, with all of these influx of migrants is what they're saying, that certain neighborhoods that used to be reasonable, upstanding, middle class, well kept, that you're seeing a decline in it because of the persons that are now taking over some of these neighborhoods, which is aligning to exactly what we're actually saying here. What is our standard as Caymanians? What we're accustomed to is you and I wouldn't share a bed. We wouldn't go to what you understand, because of exactly where we coming from. And this is why
I had to put one out because the place was so nasty there was weevils under the cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
I had to put that person out. And he actually came back by after I have a really nice
Mm-hmm.
young lady.
Right.
And he came by, he himself said, "Oh my God, is this the same apartment? From a doghouse to a dollhouse."
Oh, wow.
That was his word.
Mm-hmm.
Because he also does carpenter work, so
Mm-hmm.
I still hired him back.
You see.
But yeah, but that is what is happening out there, and I mean, they need house inspections, apartment inspections. You should have to be inspected, just like you have to do for tourism. It should have to be inspection before you can rent it.
Mm-hmm. But this is why I love this format, this forum, because we need to get some sort of temperature check as to where we need to go as a country. Whether you consider it being too dictatorship style control. Do you just look at that then for pretty much all legislation? If you like it, you stay. If you don't, go someplace else. Can we really look at certain topics, certain situations that loosely, if I could put it that way? What's your take on that? If you like us, stay. If you don't, leave. Does that work in all aspects?
No, it doesn't, because in the long run, you're still going to end up with having to rent to some of these people, but then they're going to come up and destroy your place. And I mean, come on, we need to set some standards. We need some standards set. And that's our government needs to do inspections. If you have a rental, it should be up to par.
But I think on the splin side of things is where the previous caller, Denny, is saying, why do we have to allow government to do anything? Setting standards. Why do you want that type of control? I understand what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Somebody's got to do it. I can't do it. No one can do it except our government.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some sort of standard set. If you have a room that you want to rent as a room, say it's a room, show it as a room. Don't say it's an apartment and you walk in there and you got to walk outside to turn around.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. You got to reverse to come back in? No.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an apartment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's like this apartment, a king-size bed, a kitchenette, no living room, no nothing, and a lady with 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what that's not an apartment. It's a damn room.
It's a studio. But could you say that it's even a studio?
What name is good? That my studio got a little dining table and everything.
Which is why I threw it at the previous caller. It says, do you think then we need a national standards of even the basic instead of just leaving it there arbitrarily? And then this is where public discussions, persons like yourself are actually in the business, and invite the common person from the based on the income. And this is not segregate. This is just having the real talk. Have everybody from all corners of our island sit in on this to have some sort of happy medium, because you can't just have it with everyone, for example, on the 7 Mile corridor, or let's say Cayman Kai, and you don't have a representation from Prospect. You don't have a representation, let's say, from Central. You don't have a representation from Windsor Park, because these are places where people will rent. Have it all represented and come to a happy medium to make one national standard.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. But we cannot continue as we are. We cannot, because the whole damn island gonna be a slum zone. They're bringing in people. They have nowhere to stay. They're not paying them enough to rent a decent place. So that's what the whole darn problem is. I don't know, but I tell you what, it can't continue like this.
Yeah.
Because it's disgusting. You know, I had a teacher wanted to rent a 2-bedroom with 2 kids. A teenage boy and a little girl. No, I'm sorry, but you should have, and a teacher, for God's sake, you should have a bedroom for a little girl and a bedroom for a boy. You should not be allowed to put the 2 sexes in one room.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I get what you're saying in the perfect world, but it goes back to what we are having come here
Yeah,
to
well, it's
work. That's a
encouraging.
norm. That's a norm in certain areas until you get adults and you can move out on your own. That's a whole different
Yeah, well,
conversation. You
that
see
is
what I'm
what's
saying?
bringing all this
Ah.
child molestations and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you know, and I said that, and well, if he was to ever do something like that, I would kill him. I say, yeah, well, it still wouldn't bring back your daughters, your
Yeah,
daughters.
the
Listen,
file. Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
it'll be too late.
Yeah. Denny, you're asking some
Anyway,
questions like how much will these inspections cost? Like how quickly would inspections be done? I know it's food for thought. And how often will inspections be required? All of those things. And I honestly believe with agree with Jim that this topic needs more than one show because of where we're going with it.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
is we're still talking for the record. Just let me reel people in that this is the law that
Mhm.
was never enacted because there was no commencement order. Okay. So it's not to tell you that it is not worth looking into, no matter where you come from on the fence with this. But I'm getting from what you're saying, Miss Barbara, we can't continue like this.
No, we can't. We cannot. And that, like I said, my biggest fear is the child neglect, the child abuse, the molestation, and all the rest of it that's going on.
Yeah,
Let me tell you,
there we
know,
go.
I was one of those kids.
Oh, wow. So you know where you're coming from. Well, we have
Have
reached the top of the hour and I'm going into a couple
a
seconds.
good one.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Take
Good
care.
night.
There we go. We have actually come to the end of this episode. Oh my gosh, I didn't expect this topic to. I'm not surprised though. And we could probably take up a little bit of this tomorrow as well as we continue this very informative, thought provoking discussion because it's real. And lots of people are actually being impacted. And I love seeing all sides of this. And that's why we keep it real. But again, it has come to another end of today's episode of Sabrina Speaks. It has been my pleasure bringing you this show and many more to come. Until tomorrow, please be safe. Love you lots. Take care and God bless.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.